We are each unique individuals' expressions of the divine, each woven from our past and our present experiences. And yet in our center we are one. Let us now spiral more deeply into that place of centeredness within each of us that knows the truth of who and what we are, aware that our essence is beyond conditions of today or yesterday. As we enter into our meditation together, we open ourselves to the presence of the Spirit within, which we somehow experience even more deeply when we are in community. I invite you to prepare for this deep communication with Spirit by taking a moment to come even more comfortable, fully relaxing in whatever way works for you. Deeply relaxing into the present moment, breathing in peaceful stillness, and breathing out anything else. Gently releasing any thoughts, memories, or sensations. Become the observer using your inner eye. Consciously release any activity in your body or mind, allowing every experience to become like a cloud, simply floating up and away, dissolving into the distance. Focus your attention on becoming completely still, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Seeing all activity dissolve, now rest. Rest as a newborn rests, naked in the arms of its mother, surrendering all, surrendering to Spirit's loving presence. Be silent, receptive. This is your true nature, silent, trusting, full of the infinite potential of Spirit. In the silence, all knowledge dwells. It runs in you, through you, as you. I invite you to affirm silently to yourself, I am an open and clear channel of the radiant presence of Spirit. I am an open and clear channel of the radiant presence of Spirit. And as we enter into a few moments of silence, continue affirming this truth. I am an open and clear channel of the radiant presence of Spirit. Breathing deeply. Bring your awareness back to this time and place. And from this centeredness, this silent place within, remember the truth of what and who you are. With this practice, there is a strengthened awareness and trust of this presence as you. And you are better able to respond more joyously and more resiliently to all of life's circumstances. Going forth, becoming even more receptive to the creative voice of Spirit within, joyfully adapting and adjusting to all circumstances with ease, grace, and glory. And so it is. Amen. That's just the most beautiful message. Our divine inheritance, we are children of the universe, and our divine inheritance is the right to bask in that flow, in the abundance of the world, abundance of the universe, the abundance of spirit, that radiant glow. And yet many of us don't live that way. We don't live joyous and free and in this flow and abundance and radiance every day. Why do you suppose that is? Last spring, I was interning at Unity Temple on the Plaza, and I had an opportunity to listen to Janet Nima Taylor speak at the 9 a.m. Buddhist service there. And this is where she made reference to the hungry ghost. I had never heard of the reference before, so it was new to me. And she referred to it in the context of her talk. She's briefly passed over it and said it meant being surrounded by abundance and yet still starving. And I was like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. It resonated with me. It could have been because I had recently started, or rather restarted, a 12-step program on food addiction, particularly flour and sugar. And so I was in withdrawal, and maybe I was a little hungry. So could have been the hungry part. Have you seen what happens to the brain on sugar? You've seen the pictures of the brain on sugar and the brain on cocaine? They look exactly the same under the PET scans. So I can't speak to withdrawing from cocaine, but I can tell you that from sugar, it is really hard. It is for me. So besides the hunger, I was actually interested in the concept, and so I went to research it. And this is what I found. What's a hungry ghost? So in most Far Eastern traditions, this concept exists. So Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and all these traditions, and this is how it's generally described. Hungry ghosts are human-like wraiths, W-A-R-I-T-H-S, so ghost, that's what that means, with mummified skin, narrow withered limbs, grossly bulging stomachs, long thin necks, and tiny mouths. They are defined as a fusion of rage and desire tormented by unfulfilled cravings and insatiably demanding impossible satisfactions. Very colorful. So what I heard was they have really huge bellies and really tiny necks like needle necks and really tiny mouths. So it's an image, or this is how they are portrayed, as image of never being able to get enough. Does that bring anything to mind for you? Any hungry ghosts perhaps in your life? Appetites that don't seem to be full? Resonated with what I was going through. And the other thing that it said, I actually have a picture of one. So I went to research it and found one, and there are thousands, so it's kind of like pictures of the Last Supper. There's like 1 million of them. So similarly with the hungry ghost, but I found one I thought that really represented, it's like an ancient one, kind of represented the concept. I know it's not really good, but it was the one that others were too nice. Like they took out the ugliness, and this was really, really kind of creepy. And then I read on, and it says, traditionally, hungry ghosts are condemned to inhabit shadowy and dismal places in the realms of the living earth. And then something clicked in my head. So this picture with that shadowy thing, my mind went to Gollum in The Hobbit. The story, so for those who don't know, it's the Gollum seagull character who's the ring. He's got the ring. He's obsessed about his ring, and he's wandering these dark, damp caverns in the Middle Earth, enraged or in desire, tormented. That was the image that came to me. So if you look at it, doesn't it look like it? So if you haven't seen it, that's the movie version. So look at nightmare, right? I'm not sure how I feel about being called that, by the Buddhists, but so I wanted to do more rather than take it personally. And then truly the description of when I think about my own process of trying to release this power and sugar, I really felt like there is a raging, tormented figure inside of me operating in opposition to my higher self. So I could accept that it might be true. So, and actually, I did a little further research, and the actual term for what Janet was talking about is the hungry ghost phenomena. So they weren't really calling, that wasn't what it was about. So here's what Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist, Vietnamese Buddhist monk, says, and it's a long quote, but I put it up there for those who need to see it. When we feel disconnected with our source of life, with our ancestors, with our traditional values, we begin to wither and become a hungry ghost, going around and looking for something to help us revive, looking for a source of vitality again. Someone who is alienated feels that he or she is a separate entity that has no connection with anyone. There was no real communication between him or her with the sky, with the earth, with other human beings, including his father, her mother, brother, sister, and so on. So the hungry ghost phenomena is this sense of feeling disconnected from our source of life, our God, our history. We feel isolated, afraid, separate from one another and from God, and unable to resolve this emptiness. So Thich Nhat Hanh and other Buddhists have observed that Western culture is characterized by this general disappointment and restlessness. Nothing is good enough. We want to be somewhere else. We want to be doing something else. We want to be being something else. And the extreme expression of the hungry ghost phenomena is addiction. Addiction to the top three: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But also technology, shopping, relationships, work, education, and food. So all these other addictions as well. Does this sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Okay. Wasn't just me. Okay, good. The concept is that a person who's suffering from hungry ghost phenomena has a hole in their soul, right? The sense of wholeness with a W, W-H-O-L, is pouring out this hole. The hole can be small or the hole can be cavernous. What we do is we seek external solutions to relieve the symptoms. These feelings of isolation and separation, but we do not treat the problem. And by not treating the problem, the hole gets bigger. And this seems to be okay with us as a culture, at least in my experience in conversations. When I talk about this, I often hear people say, everyone's addicted to something. It's just how it is. Our economy is built on feeding addictions, right? I think Doug mentioned, I think a few weeks ago in his talk, that the self-help industry is currently $11 billion a year strong and growing at 5 to 6% a year. To me, that's the symptom of the proof there might be an issue here, right? So where did this hungry ghost phenomena come from? So many Buddhists believe beings are reincarnated as hungry ghosts because of their prior lives of greed, envy, and jealousy. Some traditional Christians and Abrahamic religions might say we inherited trouble. The sins of the father have been visited upon the children, as it says in Exodus and Deuteronomy. In Unity, we follow the teachings of our master way shower Jesus, who, according to Paul in Corinthians, says, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. The Fillmores, our co-founders, translated this message metaphysically to mean we have the power to create a new experience of reality. No matter what our past has been like, when we understand that we are Christ beings whose thinking creates our experience. Suffering is not inherited, it's not a punishment, nor is it the will of God. It is caused by ever thinking. This is the third principle. So unhealthy addictions or behaviors are a product of error thinking. The incorrect thoughts are that somehow we are separate and unworthy. So I have an inner ghost, a golem, around my food addiction that is not solely of my own making, certainly involved, again, sorry, Mom, but it is family, it's ancestors, it's culture. However, I'm the one continuing to feed it. I'm the one continuing to have the thoughts, the errored beliefs. I'm keeping it alive. So, now, I have been a New Thought student for over 20 years. And I know the unity principles. I knew them even in the religious science world, same principles. And I have been affirming the heck out of my conscious thinking for like 20 years, or over 20 years now. I'm going to stop counting soon. So what am I missing? Why are my golem-feeding thoughts still alive and well? Well, if you remember the story in The Hobbit, Gollum is actually the shadow side of Smeagol, and they're having a verbal war all through the story. And most of the time, Gollum's winning, but in the end, Smeagol overcomes, and he banishes Gollum forever, his shadow side forever. But can we really do that? I don't know about you, but I have paid a lot of money to workshops and books and programs thinking that was possible. I'm fairly sure I seeded that $11 billion industry. But what I've learned in the past few years, is not only is that not possible, it's not even desirable. The shadows of our past hold our power. Our ghosts actually are indicating power that we're not accessing. I think this is what Marianne Williamson is meaning when she refers to her famous quote, "Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." She's saying our fears are holding us back, and many of them are not in our conscious minds, so how could affirmations work? And while they may not be of our own making, our response to them is. We can control that. Healing and wholeness and true self-esteem lie in embracing this shadow side rather than banishing it. So reintegrating ourselves, as Thich Nhat Hanh described, with the source of life, our ancestors, and our values is how we become the fullest manifestation of spirit we can be. There is a healthy hunger in us, so it's important to recognize that. That's the hunger to express our divine potential in the same way Jesus expressed his in his life. We have an innate desire to fully glow with the flow of spirit we are. That's what's meant by the Christ in you, the hope of glory. But when we're living from that place, this spiritual hunger is filled from within, and it fuels the expression of our divinity in all its glory in the world. So you were born with this glowing potential. It's simply not possible to be anything else. And if we're in the hungry ghost state, we have placed our faith in the false belief that we can be less than the expression of divine we are, and that something outside of us is a solution to that. So, to get to our greatness, we've got to transform these ghosts to error thinkings. So again, I like images. So what would a transformed golem look like? E.T. is what came to mind for me. Hey, if you ran into E.T. on the street before you saw him in the movie, yeah, he's no less creepy than the one we just saw, right? But because we see him as glowing with his healing finger and healing heart, we infuse this belief that he is a healing entity and wholly positive. So just by our perceptions, we transform something that is ugly into something beautiful. So this is our plan, right? We've got to transform our golems to ETs. So I have 4 steps that I'm recommending that I am in the process of doing and taking. And so I'm going to share those with you. And surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, because we know Spirit writes these talks, the acronym for them is GLOW. So the first one is G, get a God. Get some form of God, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Can be nature, can be science, can be Allah, can be whatever works for you. But knowing that there is a God, knowing something that's bigger than you, whatever you call it, wherever you find it, fuels the possibility for hope. Fuels the possibility for change and for things to be different than you can imagine them to be. And this sounds obvious to many people who are regular believers, but some of us, this is a big challenge for. You may have been disenchanted with God or felt betrayed by God. And some of us may have thrown God, the notion of God, under the bus. That would be me. I did that. When I was about 7 years old, I fired God. I was not feeling protected or safe or anything, and that I was done with God, and it was on me at that point. So it took about 22 years to find God again. And I actually backed into finding God. I had started studying and learning from Wayne Dyer in my professional work. The fear, insecurity, and doubt of my childhood was affecting me professionally, so I began to study Wayne Dyer. Had I known he was a minister or religious science or anything like that, he would not have been on the list, would not have listened. And I also started seeing a therapist who started me doing affirmations. Like, I'm Catholic. Affirmations are not part of the Catholic experience. Had I understood that those were prayers, wouldn't have done those either. I had absolutely no idea it was healing my relationship with God at that point. That was that Holy Spirit thing we mentioned earlier, kind of helping you on the way, whether you know it or not. When I was ready to accept God as law, so an unconditional, impersonal presence, I found religious science. And when I was ready to accept God as more than that, I found unity, that loving presence. So first step is get a God, and it will change. It evolves over time, but that's the starting point. The second one is L, GL, is lean into God. So having found one doesn't mean you're going to trust it, or it didn't mean it for me. For me, it was a process that took a while. The concept of unconditional love was totally alien to me. And the family, and the way I was raised, I love you was never a complete sentence. There was, I love you because you did something for me. I love you. Please do this. I love you. I need you. Please don't leave. But there was never, I love you, period. Or I love you because of what you've done for me. Or because you're attractive or smart. So it's a because. There's never a complete sentence. But unconditional love, as is presented by unity, God in unity, is no conditions. I love you, period. I didn't know it, didn't trust it. So the only way I learned to trust that was through prayer and meditation and actually listening to what I was guided to do and then doing it. So repeatedly doing that built my trust and faith in God, and as a side effect, built my trust and faith in myself. I've actually come to believe I am a spark of the divine, and born with this glowing possibility, the possibility of glowing with the flow of spirit all the time. But it was a process. O is glow. The O in glow is to open up to others. As hard as it was for me to trust God, it was a lot harder to trust other people. They went under the bus with him. So at that. This is still hard for me. This is the one I'm in the middle of working on. So my family, the best of their ability, but consumed by their own fears, insecurities, and doubts, could not be there for me. And so they all went under the bus. Talking and openly and sharing is a fundamental tenet of most 12-step programs. And it's the part I resist the most. I've quit a couple times over it. It's very hard for me to do. Because, typically I need a background check and 3 references before I trust somebody. So I called to complain about this to several people. And I actually encountered a friend and a longtime Unity minister. And I was complaining about this process of sharing with strangers. And then he asked me this question. He said, do you truly believe that everyone is a spark of the divine and that everyone has the same Christ potential? I absolutely do, and I was considering ministry at the time. I'm actually going to teach the concept, so yeah, I am pretty committed to that. And he goes, well then, if that is the case, then isn't it possible that any person could have something valuable to share with you. Any person, because they are God also. Well, you should have heard the 50 years of infrastructure come collapsing down in my head. It's one of those questions that just turns your life around, right? Debris, dust everywhere. I can't tell you exactly what I said because it would be profane. So I'm going to keep my exact response to myself. But I'm in the middle of still working this. It didn't shift all around. What changed was the primary lens, right? That was a big shift. I'm still having to do a lot of prayer and meditation around doing this. It's still uncomfortable for me. But I now am aware that I was looking at it through an unhealthy error thinking as far as other people can go. And this change in my thinking couldn't have happened had I not passed through the first two steps, right? Had to trust a God, had to find a God, trust a God, and then be willing to talk to other people at all about this. So it was all part of that system. Which leads me to the last letter, which is W, which is willingness, right? Willing to do it. We can't change our thinking with half-hearted willingness or idle curiosity, right? We have to be willing to change, willing to do something different. If we want our past, present, and future to fully glow with this flow of spirit, to express the energy that seeks to flow through us, we must want it more than anything else, right? And be willing to work in it continuously, even when we don't want to, and it seems impossible to do. I know that feeling. And if we just can't do it, we need to be willing, and God will help us find a way. So in summary, the 4 steps are: get a God, lean into it, get open to others, and be willing to work it. Okay? So to help me remember how to do this, because I'm doing this on a daily basis, I have an affirmation that I have been saying, and it goes like this. I stand in the radiance. The ushers are going to pass you a copy of it, but it'll be up on the thing. My ghosts now glow with the flow. Saying this affirmation first thing in the morning is best because, as many of us know from our study of, collective unconscious and Jungian dreams, we don't always wake up in the best place. Again, maybe just me, but some of that stuff comes to you when you're waking up. So this is useful to help brighten your day if you start with it. And I'd like to invite you to try it with me. But we're going to need some help with this. Are there any ghosts in the house? Nice job! Beautiful, beautiful. You guys are wonderful. Good job. We have some help, right? So we're going to repeat it once so we learn it. So the first one is, I stand in the radiance of spirit. I stand in the radiance of spirit. My ghosts now glow with the flow. My ghosts now glow with the flow. Okay, now you know it. Okay, so now the first step is stand. You're going to stand. And you're going to stand in all of your power. It's Halloween, so stand in the stance of your most favorite superhero. So Batman, Wonder Woman, the Hulk, Xena Warrior Princess, whatever it is, make a stand. Show them, girls. They're here to show you. Okay. Now we do the first one. I stand in the radiance of spirit. My ghosts now flow. Beautiful. Perfect. Now we're going to flow, right? So you're going to flow. When we go flow, we're going to flow. Okay. So now it's superpower and then flow, right? I stand in the radiance of spirit. My ghosts now flow. Okay. Last time, but this time when we flow, we're going to hold each other's hands, going back to that other message. We need each other to make this happen. So I stand in the radiance of spirit. My ghosts now flow. I go with the flow. Good job. You guys are great. my support. What was I going to do? Okay, great job. So, just remembering, you'll notice on the card, there's a card that's on the screen. You'll notice these little two eyes in the corner. What do you suppose they're for? To help, it's just a reminder that we need to see things differently. Be open to trying new things. So I invite you to join me in turning our golems into ETs by shining the light of Spirit on our shadows so that we all can transform all of our hungry ghosts or any other kind of ghosts and become more joyful beings, the ones we are intended to be. Thank you.